Bum ba bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba bum ba 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 bum. This is so awesome. I have a new top 10 list, and it is based off the best Superman cartoon episodes. So yes, this is your digital Super Saiyan 3 back here with another video. And yes, I am going to be doing a countdown. A countdown of my top 10 favorite Superman cartoon episodes. Basically, not just featuring cartoon episodes from the 90s Superman animated series, but also from other DC cartoons that feature the Man of Steel. Now, these are just the 10 that I think were the most stand out to me when it comes to, well, the best use of Superman, of course. And since I'm still sort of in a Superman mood, since I'm also in the midst of watching through Smallville, I decided to do this countdown of my favorite Superman cartoon episodes. So, this is mainly just my personal opinions. So, if you have a cartoon episode of a DC cartoon that featured the Man of Steel or was about the Man of Steel, let me know in the comment section below what was your favorite Superman cartoon episode, because I don't exactly have, any Super Friends episodes on my list, but that's okay. This is just my personal list, so let me know in the comment section below what episodes you like and that should have been featured on this list, or make a list of your own. But either way you say it, let us begin. So let's see which episodes were which were faster than a speeding bullet and more powerful than a locomotive. These are my top 10 Superman cartoon episodes. And starting off at number 10, we have Toys in the Hood from Static Shock. Now, I know this could have been more than just a Toyman episode, but because Superman was featured in this episode, it makes my list at the number 10 spot. Given the fact that a static Superman team-up was bound to happen, considering they had done a team-up with Batman prior to this, a team-up with Superman was inevitable, and it was going to happen. And what better way to have it happen than in Static Shock's third season? Toys in the Hood is a really, really good episode. I love the dynamic between Static and Superman in this episode as they team up to fight Toyman and rescue Static's classmate and best friend Daisy, as she was abducted by Darcy, as Darcy wants to use Daisy to become Daisy. Basically, tries to recreate Daisy's body from a evil easy bake oven. Well, they do succeed, and then Darcy tries to kill the real Daisy, and then it leads to a fight and an epic conclusion where Static uses his electricity to sense the electrical aura that all organic beings give off, and how Static was able to decipher which is the real Daisy. I mean, this was such a really well-written episode, and I love Toyman's involvement in this episode. Not every Superman does not have to battle Lex Luthor every time, but I'm glad they used Toyman for this crossover. So it was a really, really good episode of Static Shock, and George Newbern, yet again, hits it out of the park as Superman in this episode. It's a really good episode, and makes the number 10 on my list. Flying in at number 9, we have Battle of the Superheroes from Batman the Brave and the Bold. Now, Roger Rose does the voice of Superman in this episode, and he does a really good job as Superman throughout most of the third and final season of Brave and the Bold, because Superman only appeared, I think, in 3 episodes in the Brave and the Bold's third and final season. And case in point, Battle of the Superheroes has the plot line of Superman being doused with red kryptonite after Lois and Jimmy receive gifts, supposedly gifts from Superman, which were, well, red kryptonite. Jimmy got a new signal watch and Lois got a ruby necklace. Of course, Superman basically gets infected by the red kryptonite. Of course, we all know who actually sent the red kryptonite to Lois and Jimmy. It was Lex Luthor, pretending to be Superman. And yes, Batman tries to basically save his best friend's legacy, and basically tries to stop Superman. And it also leads into an epic battle where Batman gets into a Dark Knight Returns-esque suit, but he also has Krypto fighting alongside him. And in this episode, I also love the use of Krypto. Krypto was really great in this episode, and I was glad we actually got a Superman episode. This episode pays homage to the comics of the 50s and 60s of the Silver Age Superman. Well, after all, Batman the Brave and the Bold is a love letter to the Silver Age of Batman. Of course, we were going to get a Superman episode eventually, and it took us to the third and final season of that to happen. But either way you slice it, it's a really good episode. I mean, and it's not just Lex Luthor that appears in this episode, but we also got appearances like from characters like Mr. Mixius Spitlick, Metallo, Toyman, and of course, at the very end, Brainiac even shows up. So, Battle of the Superheroes is a really good episode and flies its way into number 9 on my list. Number 8 is the late Mr. Kent from Superman the Animated Series. Now, the late Mr. Kent starts off with Superman visiting, well, his own grave and attending his own funeral, and the funeral proceedings for his Clark Kent identity, which everyone thought was killed in a car explosion. Because, of course, Clark was investigating the case of trying to save this man who was falsely convicted and put on death row. So yes, we actually see a bit of a Superman detective story in the late Mr. Kent. Clark does find the evidence to clear the man of being convicted. And we actually eventually learned that it was the same police officer we met in the episode where Lois was being threatened, where we also met Ed Leitner, who would later become Luminous. So yeah, it was his introductory episode that we met this greedy detective. I love how the foe and the antagonist of the episode, Bowman, is actually a corrupt cop, and a really good change of pace. So it was a really nice change of pace. And Clark does find a way for his Clark identity to come back. You just gotta watch the episode for yourself. It is a really solid episode. Check out the late Mr. Kent if you people got the chance. If a lot of people like you have already seen this episode, then I'm glad you did. Number 7, A Better World, Parts 1 and 2 from Justice League. So yes, I do have a few Justice League episodes on this list, because what's Superman without the Justice League? But this episode, A Better World, starts off where we see Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman fighting through the entirety of the White House, and Lex Luthor is the president. Superman corners Lex in the Oval Office. And of course, Superman realizes, I did like being a hero, but if that's the way it's going to be, I'm done with it. But this is not the same Earth Superman we had been following from the main DCAU, well, Earth. No. This Superman is from a different Earth. But he kills Lex Luthor in the opening, and then 2 years later, he and the Justice League, they begin becoming despots. They they've been creating their own sort of government, if you will. Each member of the League would be of this evil version of the Justice League would be called the Justice Lords. However, all of this happened after they lost their Flash. So yes, the Flash is dead in this Earth. Now, a better world is on this list because of the chain reaction it would start. It would be the pure reason why we would get the Cadmus arc in Justice League Unlimited. That in a episode that will appear later on in this list. But yes, A Better World is a great two-parter, especially since after the League gets sent to the Justice Lord's Earth, the Justice League make a desperate escape to back to their Earth, thanks in part to the help of Justice Lord Batman. Now, Justice Lord Batman is the reason why they managed to make their escape back to their Earth, even though he's just as guilty as the rest of the Justice Lords, despite the fact that Batman, was a big part of the Justice Lords and was there at the siege of the White House at the very beginning of this two-parter. So yes, the League do manage to defeat the Justice Lords. Of course, since this is a list of the best Superman episodes, this is still a Superman-centric episode because Superman is at the heart of this matter. Remember, Justice Lord Superman is the boss or the leader of the Justice Lords. And of course, we get at the end of part 1, we get a fight between Doomsday and Justice Lord Superman, and it's a really cool fight scene. I'm not gonna lie. And it ends with Justice Lord Superman basically lobotomizing Doomsday in part 1. But then part 2 kicks in when we see the League go up against the Justice Lords themselves after they were deceived by the Justice Lords in part 1 and making their big escape back to their Earth. It also leads into Lex Luthor teaming up with Superman to create a power disruptor that would defeat the Justice Lords. All in all, A Better World Parts 1 and 2 is just a great episode of Justice League and definitely makes the number 7 spot on my list. Number 6 is A Little Piece of Home from Superman the Animated Series. Now, this is the introduction of Kryptonite, Superman's weakness. So yes, I can't have a list of best Superman cartoon episodes without talking about an episode that introduces his greatest weakness, or his, most iconic weakness, that being the Green Rock itself, Kryptonite. So yes, you can't have Superman without his weakness. As in the beginning of this episode, Superman's trying to stop a museum robbery where he's trying to stop these two crooks, these two low-life crooks, who are trying to rob Lex Luthor's natural history museum that Lex Luthor had financed. And these crooks end up escaping when Superman gets near a display case showing him getting weaker. And the display had kryptonite in them. Of course, Lex observes the video footage from the robbery and sees what happened when Superman got near the display. It is a really good episode. I mean, heck, the final fight in this episode has Superman taking on a mechanical dinosaur while trying to protect Lois Lane, and yes, Superman got weakened by kryptonite, and Lois, does this epic jump shot where she scores a three-pointer where she manages to get the kryptonite away from Superman leading to Superman defeating the mechanical dinosaur. All in all, it's a great episode, and it's only episode 5 of Superman the Animated Series. So yes, A Little Piece of Home is definitely worth the watch if you, during your Superman the Animated Series binge watch, it's definitely a great episode. And I do like the chase scene that happens during the middle part of this episode, where Superman is having this air chase with a couple of crooks. So yeah, like I said, it's a really good episode. Number 5, The Batman and Superman Story, Parts 1 and 2 from The Batman. Now this two-parter kicks off the final season of The Batman, the 5th and final season of The Batman. This is the season that would feature the forming of the Justice League. Sure, we saw Martian Manhunter at the end of Season 4, but Season 5 was where we would get the introduction of characters like The Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and yes, even the subject of, and yes, the man himself, Superman. And being that Superman gets introduced before Flash, Green Arrow, and Green Lantern, that says a lot. Especially since Superman in this episode, it starts off with him basically donating a check to help repair Gotham City as it was recovering from an alien invasion. And yes, Lois and Jimmy were covering the ceremony for the Daily Planet. And at the ceremony, Superman is attacked by Metallo, who tries to kill Superman right then and there. Of course, Batman and Robin show up and they try to help Superman, having them being pulled into it. Of course, when Superman, Batman, and Robin do manage to defeat Metallo, Superman's like, "Where's the kryptonite?" And Batman's like, "I have it." And then Superman says, "I want it." And then Batman says, "You're not very trustworthy. You're not very trusting, are you?" And then Superman just pulls off the ultimate move when he uses his X-ray vision to see through Batman's mask and says, "Not like that, Mr. Wayne." Of course, it's kind of similar to what he did in the World's Finest 3-parter in Superman the Animated Series, where he saw through Batman's mask. So there's that. But overall, Part 1, we also saw Superman taking on a whole bunch of Gotham rogues when Lex Luthor realizes, well, there's no one left in Metropolis I could send at him, so I might as well be spending some time in Gotham City at our LexCorp Gotham Bureau, or our LexCorp Gotham Labs. And he basically takes control of Superman when he kidnaps Poison Ivy and laced her mind control pheromones with kryptonite, as well as this whole plan to have an army of robots be the ultimate protection. And it also leads to a faux world domination scheme for Lex, because Lex tries to put himself in charge as quote-unquote a way of securing the planet from another alien invasion. Overall, I love this team up. I mean, you have so many characters be brought into this, and it's such a well-written narrative they did with Batman and Superman. Like, yes, we saw another Batman and Superman, go at it. We saw them yet again go at it, but overall, it was all in a good way for Batman to try to save Superman. And of course, once Superman snapped out of Poison Ivy's mind control pheromones that were laced with kryptonite, well, Superman and Batman team up to defeat Lex Luthor. And we see Superman take on a whole bunch of robots, and then Superman at the end agreeing to join this Justice League, despite the fact that Superman at the beginning said, "I work alone," despite the fact that he was sent an invitation by the Martian Manhunter. But I guess this team up with Batman showed him that teamwork has its merits. Number 4. What the hell? Sorry about that. Number 4. For the Man Who Has Everything from Justice League Unlimited. Now this adapts the Alan Moore storyline that happened in the 80s. Except the only character that is missing that was in the story was Robin. Sorry about that. So yeah, this is the episode where Superman gets a massive plant called the Black Mercy that was sent to him by Mongul. While Batman and Wonder Woman were going to visit Superman at the Fortress of Solitude for his birthday, Batman asked, "What do you get for the man who has everything?" And soon, Wonder Woman and Batman discover Superman is like in this trance with a massive purple plant bonded to his chest. And they soon come across Mongul, who tells them that the creature that is bonded to Superman's chest is called the Black Mercy, a deadly plant that will make you see what you are dreaming of. And for Superman, he dreams of seeing himself on Krypton. Basically, him actually raising a family on Krypton. Of course, throughout the narrative, Superman begins to realize what he's seeing isn't real, and that his son isn't real. As soon as the Black Mercy comes off of Superman, it then attaches itself to Batman. So yes, when Batman was trying to get the Mercy off of Superman, he ends up getting infected by the Mercy then himself. But of course, Superman, outraged of what had just happened, goes and has a fight with Mongul. And the fight itself is really, really good. It's a really good throwdown between Superman and Mongul. Yes, Superman is pissed off. He's pissed off that Mongul had just made him see a whole bunch of lies that he had just been dreaming of. Superman is outraged that Mongul had just done this to him. And I don't blame Superman one bit. Of course, Wonder Woman, who took a massive beating from Mongul, mind you, she then gets the Black Mercy off of Batman. And then she throws the Black Mercy onto Mongul during the fight with Superman, leading to the League defeating Mongul. And it was Mongul's last appearance in the Timiverse. Excuse me. But yes, this was a really good episode and a great way to adapt a really one-shot storyline. For the Man Who Has Everything, I definitely mean to recommend this one. Number 3, The Last Son of Krypton, parts 1 through 3 from Superman the Animated Series. Well, you can't have a best Superman cartoons episodes list without the episode that retells Superman's origins, and considering it was the 3-part premiere of Superman the Animated Series, this episode covers everything from the last days of Krypton to Clark's arrival in Smallville when he's found by the Kents and then later discovers that he's an alien. And then number 3 being part 3 where he shows up in Metropolis and becomes Superman. And it's a really good way to begin the series. This was a really good episode that had a great solid beginning, middle, and end. I've talked about this episode once before when I did my top 10 Superman the Animated Series list back in 2021, and I'm glad to talk about this episode again. It's still a very fun episode, and I still enjoy it. I enjoy Tim Daly's performance as Superman. To me, I think Tim Daly was the best voice actor to ever portray Superman. I mean, sure, people could say George Newbern was their favorite, and yes, I like George Newbern as well, but Tim Daly had the perfect range for Superman, just like Clancy Brown had the perfect range for Lex Luthor, and Dana Delaney was always a pleasure as Lois Lane. But number 2, Hereafter, parts 1 and 2, from Justice League. Now, this episode. The beginning of this episode is what I really loved about part 1. The first part in part 1 starts off with a group of Superman's villains all piercing knives into a table with Superman's shield embedded into the table. The villains are Metallo, Livewire, Toyman, Weather Wizard, and Kalibak. Excuse me. And them all saying the word revenge as they plunge the knives deep into the table with Superman's shield. And that's just the very beginning. Then it goes on to them going on a rampage through Metropolis, leading to them to have a fight with the Justice League, only for Superman to later join in when he punches Kalibak in the face. And, of course, I do love the line that George Newbern Superman says when he arrives by saying, "For what it's worth, I don't think you could have taken Batman either." Of course, things get nasty when Toyman starts unleashing his robot machine or his giant robot, I meant to say, where he's blasting everything with this beam, mind you, and Superman is dodging this beam's attacks, and everything is supposedly getting disintegrated by this beam in the way it's drawn. And then, when Superman sees Batman and Wonder Woman, about to be blasted, Superman shields them from the blast, supposedly killing him, or so we thought, but that doesn't get revealed till the end of this episode. But for the majority of part 1, we see what the world would be like without Superman and what the Justice League would be like without Superman. We see why Superman's role in the League is so important, because he is not just the leader, but he is their muscle. He is someone who will always be there for them, no matter what. And you're seeing the League struggle with this, struggling without having Superman. And Batman, does not try to come to terms with this. I mean, sure, he thinks Superman is still alive, considering that there was no body found. I mean, sure, it was disintegrated. And it turns out Toyman's machine was a matter conversion machine, and it didn't really kill Superman. It transported him somewhere else. And where Superman was transported? Well, in part 2, we learned it's the future. A hellish, apocalyptic future. And no, this had nothing to do with Apocalypse. Don't worry, that's coming later. Or shall I say, that's coming up in just a minute. But yes, Superman finds out that the world had just gone to hell without him. And not to mention, he is stripped of his powers, and he thinks that he's on a distant planet until he realizes this has been Earth all along. And this was all due to Vandal Savage. Superman learns that Vandal Savage was responsible for ending the world after his demise. And this all started a chain reaction after Vandal supposedly killed Ray Palmer. Yes, Vandal Savage was responsible for killing the Atom, leading to his gravity machine going haywire, and Savage basically being responsible for killing the entirety of the Justice League while Superman was gone. But now, Savage wants to make things right, and he needs Superman's help to undo what he had done in the past. And Superman reluctantly agrees to help Savage. I mean, I love how Superman grows this massive beard, and I don't know what is it about Superman with facial hair, but he seemed to makes it work in this episode with the facial hair, especially with this beard that he grows. And Superman goes all swordsman-like as he forges a blade. And I love the team-up he and Savage do and manage to repair the time machine and give it enough juice to send Superman back to the past. Of course, Lobo even appears in this two-parter as well, and Lobo's always been pretty funny, or always been a cool character, especially since Brad Garrett actually reprised his role from Superman the Animated Series. Of course, Lobo tries to get himself into the Justice League, trying to take Superman's place, but Superman's like, Lobo, you're fired. Go chase another bounty. And Lobo's like, screw this. I don't need you guys. And you guys aren't going to have my help anyway. And then Martian Manhunter said, well, we never asked you in the first place. Hereafter is a really good two-parter. It shows us what would happen without what the world would be like without Superman, and why Superman was so important. I mean, I even love the funeral during the processions and Lex showing up to Superman's funeral and Lois slapping him. It was also the best of Dana Delaney's Lois Lane. But my number one favorite Superman cartoon episode is Legacy from Superman the Animated Series, parts 1 and 2. So yes, the two-part finale of Superman the Animated Series has to be the greatest Superman cartoon episode of all time. I just love the way it starts off. We supposedly start this off with Superman going on a raid on a planet that Darkseid and his forces are conquering, and Superman, well, is under Darkseid's influence. Well, we learned in a flashback in part 2 that Superman, while being out in space, was captured by Darkseid and his forces, and then taken into Granny Goodness, and was reprogrammed with brainwashing. So Superman was brainwashed. Then Darkseid coming up with a ploy to have Superman invade Earth and turn the Earth against him. Oh boy. Leading to Superman being captured by the United States military, thanks in part to a kryptonite warhead given to the military by Lex Luthor, and Lex using this as a way to get rid of Superman once and for all. Of course, Supergirl, who also tries to stop Superman's rampage, gets caught up in the blast, and both her and Superman are taken into custody, thinking that Superman and Supergirl were trying to lead an invasion against Earth. Of course, we see Lois Lane disguise herself as a soldier, and she goes to break Superman out in this badass escape. And okay, I gotta admit, I like Lois in this episode, in this final episode of Superman TAS. This was the perfect way to end Superman the Animated Series. Lois breaks Superman out of the vicinity. Once Superman gets his powers back from the Yellow Sun, Supergirl, and Lois escape and head to Star Labs to give Supergirl medical treatment. Of course, this also plays a role into the Cadmus arc that would be featured in Justice League Unlimited. So yes, the actions of Superman would, from the ending of this episode, would come back to haunt him. I mean, considering how much Legacy leads into what we would see throughout Justice League Unlimited and beyond. Both this and A Better World. played big roles in setting up the Cadmus arc. Then, of course, when in the end of part 2, for the finale of part 2, Superman goes back to Apokolips to confront Darkseid, and they have one epic final battle. Superman defeats Darkseid and then tells the slaves, Darkseid is yours. You can do whatever you want with him. But then the slaves actually help Darkseid. Superman sees that the slaves of Apokolips actually like Darkseid, because he's more than just their ruler. He's their god. And Darkseid says, I'm a lot of things, Kal-El, but here I am God. And the slaves carry Darkseid off, only for Superman to see Supergirl show up through a portal and then convinces him, let's go home. And then Clark agrees to go home. And of course, it's going to take time for Clark to earn back the trust of the people of Earth. After all, he did go on a massive rampage, after all. Of course, Jimmy, one of the few who said, maybe we should give Superman another chance, because everybody deserves a second chance. Of course, a lot of people are scared. But then, of course, you see Lois Lane on the rooftop comforting Superman at the end of this episode, hugging Superman, saying, one person at a time in order to win back the trust of the people of Earth. So yes, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort to win back the trust of the people. So yes, that was my top 10 Superman cartoon episodes. Final thoughts, it's a really good list that I made, and I'm really proud that I put these episodes on the list. It's a really, 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 really good list, and I think these episodes were probably the best of their series. So yeah, this has been your Digital Super Saiyan 3, and I will see you guys next time. See ya!